Okay, we said we'd do a second part to the previous video to put clarity on why there is no legal trust for you. There is no legal trust for you as a beneficiary because there's a main component that has to be understood. So I'm going to read you out of the Law of Trust, the contextual approach, and this is from a Canadian publisher. Copyright 2000, so in case anybody's thinking this is like, oh, this is outdated or something. No, this is what's happening right now. I don't think anything changed in that crazy legal world in the year 2000 that's any different than right now. So anyways, it takes time to do research and due diligence, but here's where it states a very important point on the essence or what makes a trust. It says, without a beneficiary with a right to compel the trustee to perform, there can be no trust. For the essence of a trust is the trustee's obligation to carry out the trust. Okay, so let's look here for a second. We have done this in a previous video. This was from a court case, and it was dealing with basically the name. Now, when we're talking about the statement of birth record, we know the parents were induced to put something private into a public record. The surname is public. It's a public name. It's how someone's publicly known. Your given name is private. Okay, so when people use the public for their own private use and gain, that's the trespass. That can't be a trust. And so now we're going to read out of this court case that will tell you that there's nothing you could have placed in a trust to be a beneficiary, or nothing that your parents could have placed in a trust. Remember, do not put your trust in nobles or the princes of men, so we know who's behind the birth registration system and the legal system. So certainly you're not to trust them, so there can't be a trust there, at least according to God's word. Now let's look at how the legal authorities talk about this in this judgment that came off on this case. And one of the things that came up there was, there is no provision in the Canadian legal system, that's a clause, provision or clause, which allows an individual to transfer his given names to anyone, whether to a person, a corporation, or a trust. Hold on a second here. So it means my given name isn't in any trust in the legal system, because it says that the Canadian legal system, which would be the same as most of these legal systems that are out there worldwide, says that there is no provision. There's no food for a beneficiary to come from that, because you couldn't have given your given name to them. They say it's not even in there for that. That's not the purpose of what's going on. It says, now, the Registrar General's office is a person in law. It's a legal person. It is a corporation, registered as such, and it is a trust. They're entrusted with registering events, birth registrations, not the birth that you're thinking of. It's a legal birth. It's a legal birth, job, assigned name. Any document purporting to achieve this goal is in and of itself invalid. And having such a document notarized does not validate the document. Are we listening? If you can't hear this and you can't see this, you're not ready for a spiritual walk. Because truth has to be seen and has to be heard. Your parents, in that statement of birth record that they filled out at the hospital, did not convey or transfer, according to the legal system, property that does not belong to the public or the legal governments. It's God's property. He created you. He created truth. He didn't create fiction. He's not the father of the lie. So therefore, the surname is something that's being conveyed to you, which is a debt or a debtor, according to the Law Dictionary. Are we understanding and comprehending what's going on here? Could there be a trust then? How can you enforce something if your given name is not in that trust? It may show up ambiguous and unclear on here. That's why they did that. They don't state given name and last name or surname or family name on this. They didn't run out of ink. This was deliberate to be unclear and ambiguous. You just basically surety'd a piece of paper with an unclear name. This is not rocket science. You're going to have to take the time to listen over and over to these videos. I'm not putting them up to frustrate you. I'm putting them up to wake you up. So, do you understand now that there is no possibility for a legal trust to be there for you, and therefore you could not be a beneficiary to this document? You're just the sucker who took on the suretyship of a debt that was assigned to you based on your own consent.